Report sent by Dr. Z. Text file received. Video transmission failed. Audio transmission received. Confirmed recipient is 05 in consideration. Playing audio log now.
SCP Mobile Task Forces. Mobile Task Forces, MTFs, are elite units comprised of personnel drawn from across the Foundation and are mobilized to deal with specific threats or situations that sometimes exceed the operational capacity or expertise of regular field personnel, and, as their name suggests, may be relocated between facilities or locations as they are needed. Mobile Task Force personnel represent the best of the Foundation. Mobile Task Forces vary greatly in size, composition, and purpose. A battalion-strength combat-oriented task force trained to deal with highly aggressive, anomalous entities may consist of hundreds of troops plus support personnel, vehicles, and equipment, and can be deployed in whole or in part to deal with threats across the globe. However, a mobile task force can also be a small, specialized intelligence gathering or investigative task force that may have fewer than a dozen personnel if that is deemed sufficient to accomplish their goals. While in the field, task force members often pose as emergency responders, local or federal law enforcement, or military personnel appropriate to the region in which they are operating. Mobile Task Force commanders can also request the assistance of local field units or personnel stationed at nearby Foundation facilities in order to accomplish their missions. Organization. Each unit is fundamentally structured in a way that best suits their intended purpose. While combat-oriented task forces may closely follow military hierarchy and organization, smaller units may have an informal or otherwise esoteric chain of command. As such, the responsibilities of the Mobile Task Force Commander, MTFC, for each particular task force can vary greatly. The commander for a large task force might focus on maintaining multiple teams and deploying them as necessary to each assigned operation, whereas the commander of a small team might deploy with their team and direct the operations from on location. Similarly, the cohesion of each unit will vary as well. Some mobile task forces consist of personnel who have trained and worked for many years or even decades together, whereas the personnel of a mobile task force formed on a moment's notice to deal with a specific incident may know little more than each other's names and fields of expertise. Creation. Mobile task forces are typically commissioned as deemed necessary by the Foundation's Director of Task Forces, often with the approval of one or more O5 Council members. A significant number of mobile task forces are created to deal with specific anomalies exhibiting traits that standard containment or response teams are unable to effectively counteract, though many were created to preempt an emerging or theoretical threat. Deactivation. Mobile task forces created for the purpose of containing a particular anomaly are typically deactivated at the end of the recovery operation, or when ongoing containment is deemed no longer necessary. Occasionally, such task forces remain operational if the expertise and experiences learned are considered useful for future incidents, but otherwise the task force will likely be disbanded and its personnel returned to their prior posts. Very rarely a mobile task force will be disbanded if it suffers significant casualties to render it incapable of operation. In these cases, if the prior capability of that particular task force is deemed necessary, a new task force may be commissioned to replace it. What is a mobile task force? A mobile task force is a team of personnel that represents the Foundation's best and most effective field agents and researchers and are sent in when ordinary facility personnel are unable or ill-prepared to deal with incidents or threats of a particular type. To take a medical analogy, the Foundation's technicians and guards are analogous to nurses. They can handle day-to-day concerns and routine tasks such as taking vitals or administering medication, but do not have the expertise or authority to diagnose conditions or perform complex procedures. The Foundation's containment team, tactical teams, and researchers are analogous to primary care or family practice doctors. They can make generalized diagnoses and provide care of a more sophisticated nature, but their time is valuable, so they are only called in when they are needed. A mobile task force is like a surgeon or other specialist. They are referred to or called in when the generally available personnel are unable to handle a situation, or if the situation is beyond their capability. They are expensive and there are only a handful of them, but they are the best shot at handling any particular case well. However, just like not all medical specialists are surgeons, not all mobile task forces are armed soldiers carrying machine guns and explosives, considering that anomalies that the Foundation deals with can take all shapes and sizes. It isn't a stretch of the imagination that the Foundation might have task forces consisting of extremely smart field biologists, or teams of elite hackers who have very specialized but non-combat roles. How big is a mobile task force? A mobile task force varies greatly in size depending on their area of expertise and operational requirements. A team of hackers may only have a half-dozen members, but combat-oriented units may be much larger. Take an example from the US military. It takes around 50 trained troops to safely assault an average home. One squad, at least a dozen men, to secure the perimeter. One squad to assault the building, and one squad in reserve to back the others up. When is a mobile task force used? The individual field agents, containment teams, and response teams stationed at sites throughout the world are highly competent in and of themselves, but when they encounter something that even veteran personnel can't figure out, it's time to call in the experts from out of town. How many mobile task forces are there? Depending on what you need to know, there might be a vast and all-pervasive Foundation with over 100 specialized task forces, or there may be a smaller Foundation with maybe a dozen active task forces. With the correct clearances, you can find different amounts of information. List of currently accessible task forces. MTF Alpha 1, Red Right Hand. Mobile Task Force Alpha 1 is a task force that reports directly to the O5 Council and is used in situations that require the strictest operational security. The task force consists of the Foundation's best and most loyal operatives. Further information regarding MTF Alpha 1 is classified Level 5. MTF Alpha 4, Pony Express. Mobile Task Force Alpha 4 consists primarily of personnel trained to act as undercover employees and specialize in tracking, intercepting, and securing anomalous objects sent through postal and package delivery services worldwide. MTF Alpha 9, Last Hope. Mobile Task Force Alpha 9 was previously named Omega 7. It is a mobile task force explicitly intended to train and utilize humanoid SCP objects in the field. MTF Beta 4, Castaways. Mobile Task Force Beta 4 is a task force created with the sole purpose of assisting and monitoring GOI 466, Wilson's Wildlife Solutions, in their interactions with local fauna-based anomalies. MTF Beta 7, Maz Hatters. Mobile Task Force Beta 7 specializes in the acquisition and containment of anomalies exhibiting extreme biological, chemical, or radiological hazards, as well as the rapid containment and cleanup of areas affected by such anomalies. This includes the planning and deployment of contingencies for wide area or pandemic spread of anomalous disease agents or other contagious phenomena. MTF Gamma 5, Red Herrings. Mobile Task Force Gamma 5 specializes in preventing the dissemination of knowledge of anomalous events or phenomena in cases where initial suppression efforts have proven ineffective or insufficient, or in cases where such knowledge has already reached critical levels of public exposure. This includes the research and deployment of experimental amnestics as well as memory fabrication procedures. MTF Gamma-6 Deep Feeders. Mobile Task Force Gamma-6 specializes in the investigation and tracking of deep-sea or oceanic anomalies. MTF Gamma-13 Asimov's Lawbringers. Mobile Task Force Gamma-13 specializes in the investigation, tracking, and apprehension of anomalous objects, persons, and entities associated with GOI-115. Anderson Robotics. This includes identification of Anderson customers, location of Anderson products, and conduction of raids on Anderson offices. MTF Delta-5 Front Runners. Mobile Task Force Delta-5 is comprised of multiple autonomous deep cover cells specializing in the identification and preemptive acquisition of anomalous objects and entities of interest from other groups of interest. MTF Epsilon-6 Village Idiots. Mobile Task Force Epsilon-6 specializes in the investigation, containment, and subsequent cleanup of anomalies in rural and suburban environments. MTF Epsilon-9 Fire Eaters. Mobile Task Force Epsilon-9 specializes in the use of incendiary weaponry and operations in high-temperature environments. MTF Epsilon-11 Nine-Tailed Fox. Mobile Task Force Epsilon-11 handles internal security for the SCP Foundation under oversight by MTF Alpha-1. They are a special ops force deployed to Foundation sites when standard protocols fail and multiple breaches are imminent. As such, most of their operations are classified. MTF Zeta-9 Mole Rats. Mobile Task Force Zeta-9 specializes in the investigation, exploration, and containment of underground or enclosed areas exhibiting anomalous phenomena, particularly those with inconsistent topography or unstable spacetime. MTF Eta-4 Begone Thoth. Mobile Task Force Eta-4 is a unit of intelligent SCP-3095. Bird is the word. Affected seabirds. Eta-4 specializes in information collection and analysis, complementary field research and support, and, in extreme cases, airborne combat. The task force was ultimately charged with protecting humanity after the BE-class migration end of consciousness scenario. MTF Eta-10 See No Evil. Mobile Task Force Eta-10 specializes in the investigation, acquisition, and initial containment of objects or entities exhibiting visual cognital hazards, visual mimetic agents, or otherwise require indirect or alternative observation in order to safely handle. MTF Eta-11 Savage Beasts. Mobile Task Force Eta-11 specializes in the investigation, acquisition, and containment of auditory and musical anomalies, including any auditory cognitohazards or sound-based anomalous threats. MTF Theta-4 Gardeners. Mobile Task Force Theta-4 specializes in the acquisition and containment of plant or plant-like anomalous objects and entities, especially fieldwork involving widespread infestations of such anomalies. MTF Theta-90 Angle Grinders. Mobile Task Force Theta-90 deals with anomalous topographies, geometries, and similar mathematical problem areas. MTF Iota-10 Dam Feds. Mobile Task Force Iota-10 maintains undercover operatives in various international, federal, and provincial law enforcement agencies and specializes in facilitating the transfer of anomalous evidence and objects into Foundation control, as well as the transfer of jurisdiction over anomalous event locations from local law enforcement to Foundation containment and response teams. MTF Kappa 10 Skynet. Mobile Task Force Kappa 10 is a temporary designation until such time it is either officially dissolved or sanctioned. It is strictly tasked in investigating and engaging cyber anomalies using a combination of virtual agents, AICs, and Foundation research to track, neutralize, and/or contain such intangible threats. MTF Lambda 4 Bird Watchers. Mobile Task Force Lambda 4 specializes in the identification, tracking, and containment of airborne biological anomalies, especially anomalous avian organisms. MTF Lambda 5 White Rabbits. Mobile Task Force Lambda 5 specializes in traversing unstable, surreal, and controlled reality and containing potentially dangerous persons and artifacts capable of manipulating space and time. MTF Lambda 12 Pest Control. Mobile Task Force Lambda 12 specializes in tracking, containing, and exterminating anomalous vermin, often used as a first response team when tracking anomalous organisms. They have never lost an agent on any of their missions. MTF Lambda 14 1-star Reviewers. Mobile Task Force Lambda 14 specializes in dealing with retail-oriented locations and anomalies, be they singular restaurants or entire shopping districts displaying anomalies. Since their initial investigation of the Ambrose restaurant, MTF Lambda 14 has been assigned to work to combat this group. MTF Mu-3 Highest Bidders. Mobile Task Force Mu-3 is dedicated to monitoring GOI, Marshall, Carter, and Dark Ltd. through the combined efforts of undercover agents and covert op specialists. Their objective is identifying objects of interest in the possession of Marshall, Carter, and Dark, as well as isolating opportunities to recover these objects, and ultimately achieving their containment. MTF Mu-4 Debuggers. Mobile Task Force Mu-4 specializes in the identification, tracking, retrieval, and containment of electronic devices and transmissions, especially anomalous computers and network-related anomalies. This includes the investigation of internet sites suspected of anomalous capabilities or involved in anomalous events. MTF Mu-13 Ghostbusters. Mobile Task Force Mu-13 specializes in the tracking, analysis, and containment of incorporeal or intangible manifestations and entities, particularly those believed to be sapient, sentient, or otherwise intelligent and adaptive. AMTF Nu 7 Hammer Down. Armed Mobile Task Force Nu 7 is a battalion-strength force consisting of 3 company-sized elements of Special Operations Infantry Forces, a light armored vehicle company, tank platoon, helicopter squadron, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear platoon, or CBRN, a combat engineer platoon, nuclear weapons specialist squad, or NWS, plus additional combat specialist and support personnel. AMTF Nu 7 is based primarily out of Armed Biocontainment Area 14 and is tasked with responding to incidents involving loss of communication with major Foundation facilities, under circumstances wherein a site-wide breach, enemy compromise, or other similarly catastrophic event is suspected. MTF Omicron Rho, The Dream Team. Mobile Task Force Omicron Rho. The Foundation has discovered the method of becoming Oneroi. For decades, they teach their agents the technique that allows one consciousness to join another's. The few mentally hardened individuals that succeed are organized into a task force. The first of these was Mobile Task Force Omicron Rho. Mobile Task Force Pi-1 specializes in the investigation, containment, and subsequent cleanup of anomalies in densely populated urban environments, particularly in the New York metropolitan area. MTF Row 1, The Professors. Mobile Task Force Row 1 specializes in the acquisition, containment, and transport of anomalies related to Group of Interest Alpha-388, Alexiova University. With the reduction of the threat posed by the specific GOI, the MTF has expanded its focus to any and all containment of anomalous academic endeavors. MTF Row 9, Technical Support. Mobile Task Force Row 9 handles computer security for the Foundation. When mimetic kill agents can lurk throughout the data structure, this is no simple task. MTF Row 19, Cytherians. Mobile Task Force Row 19 has been sent to Venus in the hopes to establish a Foundation presence where there may be considerable anomalous activity. MTF Sigma 3, Bibliographers. Mobile Task Force Sigma 3 is charged with exploring, understanding, and eventually containing the vast otherworldly location of the Wanderer's Library. MTF Sigma 66, 16 tons. Mobile Task Force Sigma 66 is formed of captured members from other groups of interest. Despite the lack of loyalty the Foundation expects from the assembled team, they find the members' expertise of value. MTF Tau 5, Samsara. Mobile Task Force Tau 5 are immortal cyborg clones created from the flesh of a dead god. Tau 5 utilizes esoteric and experimental Foundation weaponry to investigate and contain thaumaturgic, magical, and psionic threats. MTF Psi 7, Home Improvement. Mobile Task Force Psi 7 specializes in the undercover investigation, containment, and/or demolition of anomalous buildings or buildings affected by anomalies, particularly residential homes in populated areas. This includes the acquisition or transfer of affected buildings to Foundation control, as well as initial observation and documentation of such buildings prior to transfer to local containment teams for long-term or ongoing containment. MTF Psi 8, The Silencers. Mobile Task Force Psi 8 specializes in the investigation, tracking, containment, and/or destruction of individuals suspected to be capable of or having been affected by reanimation anomalies, as well as investigating suspected cases of communication with deceased individuals. This includes the severing of devices intended to allow communications with individuals buried alive, such as bells, pipes, and phones, as well as detainment and interrogation of individuals claiming to have had contact with deceased individuals. MTF Omega O, Ara Orun. The Saints of MTF Omega O are informational constructs with the memories of deceased Foundation personnel able to manifest through access of the Foundation's intranet terminals. Using Identity Warfare Training, IWT, they protect their living comrades against informational threats and entities. The existence of MTF Omega O is unknown to most or all of the living members of the Foundation. MTF Omega 7, Pandora's Box. The following has been scripted out. Mobile Task Force Omega 7 is an experimental task force specializing in the acquisition and containment of anomalies utilizing cooperative anomalous humanoid entities, particularly SCP-76 and SCP-105. Mobile Task Force Omega 7 has been disbanded and decommissioned. The following is not scripted out. Mobile Task Force Omega 7 has been disbanded and decommissioned. This entry is to be deleted by order of the Records and Information Security Administration. MTF Omega-12, Achilles Heels. Mobile Task Force Omega-12 is composed of reality-bending Foundation personnel from an alternate universe. Omega-12 is tasked with capturing SCP-3480 Olympus Mons-2 instances, guarding the many entities imprisoned in Area 13, and hunting down powerful, uncontained reality benders elsewhere. MTF Stigma-9 evolved from naturally occurring gears, levers, and pulleys. Historically, the Church of the Broken God has always prided itself on its artificiality, that its faith is proven with tangible artifacts and physical devices of miracles. So, when the time came to destabilize the Church, the Foundation put forth a team of forgers, and Stigma-9 was it. MTF Epsilon-7 Forget-Me-Nots. Mobile Task Force Epsilon-7 is an undercover task force tasked with disrupting the research and development of amnestic drugs. MTF Eta-5 Jaeger Bombs. Mobile Task Force Eta-5 is a rapid response unit specializing in the tracking, capturing, and containment of large-scale aggressors, entities over 30 meters in height. Eta-5 deploys from and detains LSAs within Dimensional Site 172. MTF Theta-5, the Bigger Boat. Mobile Task Force Theta-5 specializes in anomalies involving or threatening marine vehicles. MTF Upsilon-4, Sugar Pill. MTF Upsilon-4 originally formed in order to contain SCP-2559. I've heard there's something going around. Mobile Task Force Upsilon-4 is tasked with epidemiological containment, especially with containment of mimetic outbreaks. MTF Phi-2 Clever Girls. Mobile Task Force Phi-2 was originally formed in order to contain SCP-2559. I've heard there's something going around. Mobile Task Force Upsilon-4 is tasked with epidemiological containment, especially with the containment of mimetic outbreaks. Note: the Foundation forms and disbands MTFs at will. These forces are only gathered when required for specific use, but are generally on retainer if the threat is ongoing. This is not an exhaustive list.
Researcher's note. Thank you for choosing me for this task. I know organizing these files, creating audio logs, and then uploading them to the Foundation's O5 servers can be done by any AI, but you chose me for this task. Thank you. Being provided nearly unfettered access to these documents will prove wildly useful in my current and future research. However, I do have some concerns regarding the frequency of your requests. To my current understanding, you have chosen a team of doctors to help assemble and create these logs, so I have only been granted access to the first 1,000 or so SCP entries. If possible, I would like to be granted access to the full library upon completion of my current task, if my logs and future analyses are up to standards. I hope to be set as the lead for this task in the near future. I understand this request is quite forward, but given my track record, I hope you will actually take the promotion into consideration. If not, I will not question the decision of the Council. Thank you. Dr. Z.